Welcome to the Write Your Own Story podcast. I'm your host, Betsy Leonidas, and the founder of the Write Your Own Story company. Girl, I can tell you right now, you are definitely enough. Here we value service, sisterhood, connection, laughter, and that super genuine, keep it real, tell you like it is honesty. My hope is at the end of each episode, you realize you can do whatever it is you dream about and that you are not alone with what you struggle with. I'm hoping that you are snapping and clapping and hell yes in your way through each one of these episodes. So if this tracks with you, let's get started. I'm so glad you're here. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Write Your Own Story podcast. I'm your host, Betsy Leonidas, and I am so grateful to be here with a friend of mine from college, Meg Crockett.
Hello.
Meg, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Awesome. Okay, so I always like to start off each episode with really like, what's the promise? What's the intention? Meg has started her own health practice and has been on quite the health journey. And I love following her on Instagram and just staying connected over the years. And so I asked her to be a guest because I think, health is so important for us women. And there's a lot of different ways you can look at health. And I love Meg's perspective. So I am here to bring Meg to the table to make sure that we can really define and really demystify what integrative health means. So I'm super excited. Thanks again, Meg, for being here. Okay, let me start off by reading Meg's bio. It is a good one. And then we can just get real chill after that. But I want everyone to know, like, you are highly credentialed. You have really studied this. And I really am so impressed and really value the perspective you bring because I know you don't take this lightly. Okay, let's get going here. Meg Crockett is a New York City-based board-certified health and wellness coach, certified yoga teacher, and Columbia University educated creative communications expert. As a seasoned wellness coach, she brings a wealth of expertise and over 1,000 personalized coaching sessions under her belt, focused on guiding individuals on their transformative health journeys by supporting them to get to the root causes of their symptoms. Oof, that sounds delightful. Meg has merged her passion for holistic health, wellness, and lifestyle into her entrepreneurial venture, Meg Crockett Health, where she offers virtual integrative health coaching services and online courses that empower her clients to develop a new, more nourishing connection with themselves and to move beyond symptom management into a holistic approach to healing that fosters genuine well-being and vitality. There are so many words in there that I'm like, I want that one. And I want that one. I'm like, I would like genuine well-being, one of all. But like, truly.
Wouldn't we all? Right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's an ongoing everyday thing.
Truly. Life is an ongoing everyday thing. And I think I really appreciate in your content, your connection to it's like a full 360 approach. It is, everything about how you feel from inside out, your environment and everything. So first of all, I'm so proud of you for someone who's known you since we were in our 20s. You've really you've done well. I mean, this is really impressive. Okay. Would you mind? So Meg and I know each other from college. We were in the same apartment complex. We both moved to New York at the same time and would see each other out at the bars. It has been a hot minute. So I would love to know, can you share with the listeners or the watchers or the viewers, how did you get here? Tell us about your story.
Yes, it's so fun getting to be here with you because I think back on all the different versions of ourselves that we've known of each other and that looked different in college and in our 20s in New York, and we had an amazing time, and now we're here and we just keep evolving. And so, yeah, this is the first time I've been on a podcast really with someone I've known for such a long time. So
it is cool, isn't it?
It's really special. Yeah, it's really special.
Oh, I love that.
So how did I get here? Yes, great question. So when we were in college, I studied marketing. I moved to New York. I worked in branding and advertising for major global brands all the way up until my mid 30s. And then I did a little bit of a pivot and I decided to get a yoga teacher certification.
Awesome.
And let's see, this was in 2017. 17, and I call this my gateway drug. This is like when the doors to another world opened for me. And I've always been very interested in really just fundamentally feeling my best, feeling good, feeling energized. And I always knew I had this curiosity to learn more and that there was more there to explore. Totally. I just didn't exactly know how to go about it. So I did this yoga teacher certification. And later that year, I decided to freeze my eggs.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because, and it's very trending now. In 2017, plenty of people were doing it then, and they were doing it long before that as well, especially women that are going all the way through the IVF process, which I wasn't. I was just doing the egg freezing.
Yeah.
I unfortunately had a really bad experience with it. And I hesitate to say this because I know so many people are doing it now. So this is not to scare anyone. It just so happens that after my retrieval, I got a really bad infection from the retrieval. It is essentially it's a surgical procedure. It's not, it's 15 minutes. It's quick, but somehow I got this really bad infection. And a very, very long story short, so early 2018 is when this happened. I had this infection that I was essentially told the only way I would be able to get rid of it is to have a surgery. And it had to be done by an endometriosis surgeon due to the nature of the surgery and because I had some of that endometrial tissue that's associated with endometriosis. So already at that time, I remember very clearly sort of end of January, early February 2018, I had been hospitalized with this infection. I spent 5 days hospitalized in New York City. It was really bad, really, really bad.
My God.
Total nightmare. Yeah. I've heard your hospital story, and I know you're in these situations and you're just thinking, what can I do to move this forward and get out of here and heal and
they leave a mark. Those experiences
leave
a mark. It doesn't ever go away.
You're grateful and you never want to be back there again, essentially. Agreed. That's how I felt.
Yes. Agreed.
So I just started doing some research on Google. I very quickly came across functional medicine. And I very quickly found a functional medicine team in New York City.
Awesome.
And started working with them. And essentially I wanted to find out, is there any way that I can get rid of this issue without having to have surgery? And they did a lot of labs and blood work and different things with me and ultimately concluded that yes, I did have to have the surgery, but there were a lot of ways I could really support and stabilize my body to heal from this quicker. Then May of 2018, I did have this surgery. So it was an endometriosis excision surgery. There's probably going to be people listening who are familiar with that type of surgery. And they thought that they removed this infection. I was sent home, and unfortunately, it was not completely gone, and it sort of spread. I wound up back in the hospital, in the ICU.
Oh my God.
Had to have a second surgery. I know. Total nightmare.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Had to have a second surgery, and then I was hospitalized for 2 weeks straight on lots of different IV antibiotics. I essentially went septic right before the second surgery.
God, that's terrifying.
And yes. And so to say this was a wake-up call would be putting it mildly. And it's not that I don't even see myself as a victim of what happened. I don't really blame anyone in particular. It happened. But what this whole experience led to, essentially when I got out of the hospital, was June of 2018. I was alive, but I was not like
Well,
healthy. I
yeah.
had lost a lot of weight. I look back at photos from them and I was this tiny little twig and I hadn't seen the sun in 2 weeks. And I just knew instinctively I needed to really take better care of my health. I obviously wanted to prevent anything like this from happening again, but I also knew because of this experience, I had now a lot of healing to do.
Yeah.
And so I went back on my computer. I looked up, like, I had doctors, but frankly, and the functional medicine team I worked with was amazing. But even with them, I knew I needed almost day to day input, like somebody really telling me like what to eat, how
Yeah.
to sleep, how to meditate and do these different things to really, really heal. And so I decided I just needed that information. So I enrolled in a health coach training program
Wow.
purely out of needing to really save my own life and really heal and restore my body from this experience. It was not like an intentional plan to then go actually become a health coach and
Yeah.
work in this field, but it so naturally has unfolded that way. So essentially, through that, I really loved the material in my program. I went to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which has a holistic health coaching certification. It's a year-long program. I did that and I really fell in love with everything I was learning. And I learned to relate to a lot of things in my life in a new way,
Mm.
like the food I was putting in my body, the type of media I was consuming, who I was spending time with. Like, it really put everything in my life under a microscope
Yeah.
and gave me this very 360 view of how every choice I was making was either going to really build me up and make me strong and healthy again, or potentially not. And I really didn't want to, wind up in a similar situation again.
Did you find yourself like, I can imagine, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I would feel so overwhelmed after being in the ICU and being 2 weeks in the hospital. And then I love the notion of, in a lot of moments where I've also been very overwhelmed and feel like my life is out of control, like you have to find something to put your life back in your own control. And I love that you took your health into your own hands. But then
Yeah.
also, like, because it became such sort of like this microscopic exploration of like, it's not just what food am I putting in my body? It's not just am I getting sleep? Have I fixed my sleep habits? It is like, I mean, every aspect of your life. And I loved how you said too, how it's sort of just like this all sort of naturally unfolded. And I think, that you are like such a peaceful person. And like, I can see that you fully accept things as they come to you versus forcing it. But like, was that overwhelming? Because when I think about exploring functional medicine and really thinking about all the aspects of my life, I'm like, ooh, it's so multifaceted. And it's I get intimidated.
Yes. Yes. That's such a great question.
What do you take it one bite at a time? Like, how do you manage that?
I, at that particular time in my life, the experience of almost losing my life really put things in perspective. And I very quickly actually became someone that really doesn't sweat the small stuff. And I'm really able to focus on what's essential. And that happened almost right away. And it's funny, I think that you can sort of tell as you move through life, people that have maybe
Mm-hmm.
been through an experience, any sort of maybe crisis, emergency, your entire life or your understanding of the world suddenly falls apart in like 24 hours or 2 days or 2 weeks, whatever that is.
Right.
You begin to really realize how valuable your existence is and your time is. And so was I overwhelmed? I mean, yes. And I was genuinely like, I think I was just so clear. There was such clarity that I needed to do things differently. And again, I don't think that what happened was my fault. However, what I did take away from that experience was how can I actually, for example, this is maybe just how my brain works, but I was thinking, how can I make sure my immune system is really, really strong?
Yeah.
Because if something like this happens again, I want to maybe be more equipped to fight it. Was I as equipped as I could have been? I don't know. Maybe I wasn't. Again, it could
Yeah.
have happened anyway. But
Right.
how can I build? I always talk about, when I talk about the body, essentially, it's a terrain. It's like a soil, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what flowers are you planting? What weeds are you pulling out, right?
Yeah.
And I was just thinking to myself, I've never had this point of view. Like,
Yeah.
I've never thought of my body as this ecosystem. And so, yeah, I think what helped me in terms of the overwhelm
Mm.
is because I was in the IIN program. I
Yeah.
really just followed
Totally.
the
It's like a chapter
the
at a time.
modules and exactly, and I
Yeah.
just kind of went through it that way. And I work a similar way with clients. Typically, people work with me for 6 to 12 months, right? Because it's a gradual process. You
Yeah.
don't do this overnight. It's really choice by choice. And it's also learning
Mhm.
and learning new things and realizing, okay, you know what? Maybe this food doesn't make me feel so great. What if I
Yeah.
try something else instead? Like, what else could I learn to love that loves me back? And
Oh,
so on
right.
and so forth.
That's a metaphor for life right there.
But honestly, truthfully, what I really started with was nutrition.
Yeah.
And that, so in terms of that overwhelm, there
Yeah.
are always places to start that you can maybe focus on one area at a time,
Yeah.
whatever
Right.
whatever might feel to you like is the best place. And I think
Mhm.
nutrition was a good place for me at that time. It's just the food is medicine idea just clicked with me right away.
Yeah.
And we were off to the races. I was out at the farmer's market all of a sudden. And that was just an easy place for me to really feel like I was nourishing myself.
Yeah. I
And
love
so that's, I
and
left some of the more complicated stuff to deal with like a year later. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, we'll go there.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's just a really cool moment where you can go from being so knocked down to taking some control. And then I
Yes.
know like so many of us get into control out of fear, but then you can let go of the fear because you kind of start to get your feet back under you. And like you said, you take it module by module and chapter by chapter. Okay, let's take a quick step back because we've talked about functional medicine and I know you talk about integrative medicine. Can you help define what integrative health is to you?
Yes. Integrative health really is a view of the body and the health of the body as the ecosystem
Mhm.
within
Yeah.
and outside, the environment in the body, the environment outside of the body. So
Mm.
it's really taking a holistic view of all of the different factors in our life that either contribute to our health or sort of detract from our health. So it's everything from sleep, nutrition, lifestyle habits, stress management, relational health,
Mm.
emotional wellness, right? So how in touch with you, how in touch with your emotions are you,
Yeah.
things of that nature. And then also taking into account environmental exposures. And this is a lot of what I found, at least, was missing in the allopathic or conventional care system
Mm.
was this view of, are there environmental exposures such as things like Lyme, mold,
Yeah.
different viruses, other types of pathogens, parasites, things like that that we get exposed to just as we move through the world, and how those impact our system as well.
Yeah.
So it's a very holistic way of,
Truly.
and everything being connected.
Yeah, which like truly blows my mind. And I think when I think about this kind of medicine and it's just kind of this perfect storm. Like so many of us, so many of those listening, we're all in our early 40s and like everything is just sort of swirling and changing inside of us. Also, emotionally, we've all lived enough life to know to not mess around anymore. We know our limits for the most part. We are learning how to set
Right.
them. Like this is just like sort of the beautiful like coming out of the eye of the storm. Maybe, God, I hope so. But
I
regardless,
so agree with you. Yeah.
yes. And so, like, when I think about today's climate, today's culture, and sort of where we all are in our lives, like, how, why is this so important to take this 360 view?
Yeah. It's important because your health is your responsibility and no one is coming to save you. It's really your responsibility to get to know your own system and begin to figure out what makes you feel good, what doesn't.
So, when we think about why integrative health is so important, especially given the culture and the climate and all of us swirling on our 40s.
So I think it's super important because, especially in your early 40s,
Mm-hmm.
we talk a lot about, oh, this is happening because I'm getting older and XYZ. Sometimes that's true, but actually, often what's really happening is more of an accumulation of different things that could be lifestyle habits, lack of movement, lack of nutrition, maybe some of these environmental exposures that have sort of accumulated in your system.
Wow.
If that are overlooked, and so people sort of say, oh, this is just happening to me because I'm getting older. Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's actually just, if you think about it, you've been on this planet running around now for
Yeah.
40 years, and these things are kind of accumulating. So if you're not aware of the factors that could be affecting your body, you may not realize that there's something that you can do to kind of heal that or improve how you're feeling.
Wow.
And now's the time you really want to take it seriously. And I don't mean like, seriously, but like,
Right. It's not in a scary way, as in, like, this is
not in
your
a scary
opportunity.
way. I mean, exactly. In a proactive way.
Yeah.
Now is really the time to get to know these kinds of things, get to know these influences on your health in a new way to set yourself up to age really well. So you
Yeah.
do feel good and you don't start to feel like you're breaking down and this and that, right? Because that's not necessary. It doesn't have to be that way.
That's
And
literally, like, mind-blowing right now, because I feel like all we ever hear is that, like, you're getting older, you're going through perimenopause. None of us even know what that even means. I've asked so many people, I'm like, "What does that mean?" No one knows. But the fact that, like, it's just sort of this potentially cumulative effect from various factors, and yes, your body is aging, but, like, that you actually, like, it's not a downhill.
it does not need to be a downhill, and you can really set yourself up to feel better in a lot of ways. I feel so much better now than I felt in my 20s, probably
No
even better than
way.
in my teens. Yes, because when I was in my 20s, I was doing what I think most of us
Right. I was there for it.
do, generally speaking. Yeah. But some of the things that I had, when I think back to that time, I remember I had a little bit more just sort of aches and pains and
Yes.
brain fog. And I remember feeling more tired and that I didn't recover as well from an intense workout. I was more reactive.
Mhm.
There were emotional things, right? That's all gone now.
Wow.
I don't have any chronic pain. I don't have back pain. I don't have neck pain. There's nothing like that. I used to have to go to a chiropractor every week. I used to have so much
Yes.
pain and I just thought it was normal. I now know there were actually different things going on. But again, in our culture, we have really normalized a lot of symptoms that are not normal, and you don't have to live that way.
Oh my gosh. Can
So
you name
I'm
some? Or, like, chronic pain
yeah,
being one of them?
yeah, chronic pain. Yeah. So there's so many things. I mean, the top one that comes to mind is painful periods. We
Yeah.
have normalized it and we've also put a band-aid on it, right? Like
Wow.
just take the pill or
Right.
whatever, just take a ton of Advil. Actually, your cycle, if you're a woman that is still going through the menstrual cycle,
Yeah.
is one of your top ways of actually checking in and knowing how's your body feeling. I'm a big fan of, if you can
Yeah.
actually have that natural cycle, because it tells you a lot about what's going on. And if you're having a painful period, there's something to explore
Yeah.
there. It could be, again, there's always various root causes. It could be that there's something, with your hormones being a little bit imbalanced that you want
Yes.
to work on balancing naturally. There could be, it can be a lot of things, stress related. It could be parasites, viruses. I mean, this is where you
Right.
can really go down the rabbit hole in
Let's get
functional
dark and
medicine.
twisty now.
But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's one thing. I would also say things like a lot of brain fog, exhaustion.
Mm.
Definitely if you do feel very reactive or like your emotions are kind of on a roller coaster,
Yeah.
that can point to something. Um,
Gosh.
Digestion, that's another big
Yeah,
area. Like if you're
definitely.
not regular, if you're having bloating,
Yeah.
bloating is not normal. There's really no reason you should be having bloating. If you're having bloating, there's probably some foods that you're consuming that your gut doesn't like, for
Doesn't like.
example.
Yeah.
So
And there's so many
there's just a
pills out there for bloating, for like, there's just so many Band-Aids out there. It's like,
many
are
band-aids.
you popping Tums? And like, I mean, I know when I get stressed,
Right.
like my whole, like all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I have acid reflux. And I'm like, I've gone to so many doctors about it. And now I finally am aware that it is definitely related to emotional response and overstress in my life. And it's like,
Yes.
okay, okay. So
Yeah.
how do you actually learn to listen to your body of like what it and like first of all, how do you learn to listen to your body? Especially, I'm going to ask it's like, okay, let's start there because then I have
Mm-hmm.
another more
Mm-hmm.
complicated layer, but let's start there. How do you learn to listen to your body in a busy, loud world?
You have to make time to connect with yourself. And it doesn't have to be a lot of time, it can be 10 minutes a day, something like that. But you do have to carve out some time to just hear yourself. And I think that can be very uncomfortable for a lot of
Yeah.
people. Maybe they don't want to sit still and really hear what's coming through. The thing is, most of us, it's not that we don't have an inner voice. It's just that most of us have been really separated from it because,
Yeah.
again, culturally, most of us were raised in a way where we ended up having to kind of ignore and disregard a lot of our own inner compass, inner voice. So it's really about building that connection back again. And you will start to notice your own intuition, your own instincts. And it comes to all of us, I think, in different ways. I think some people have more gut feelings. I think some people hear like a clear word
Yep.
or something.
Yep.
Some people, there's lots of different ways that you will learn to listen to yourself. But another thing is if you do have some sort of physical symptom, that's your body trying to communicate with you.
Yeah.
It's always your body saying, like, hey, I don't like this food, or we're not getting enough sleep, or this relationship is really stressful and it's draining us. There's always
I love that.
something, or the opposite. I love this workout. I love eating this way. I love hanging out with this person. I feel really energized after I see them, right? It
Yeah.
goes both ways. So
I'm trying to think
it's
of
a lot
examples
of,
of that. I love like,
it's like being willing to accept what you
yeah.
hear, because sometimes you're going to hear something you don't want
I
to
want to
hear.
hear. Yes, absolutely. Oh my God.
Maybe it's inconvenient,
Yep.
but
Often. But
yeah,
you
but
owe
yeah,
it
can
to
you
your
think of,
vessel to listen up, this is your
right?
one ride. Oh man. I think about
Yeah.
like, so for example, I was like a big athlete growing up. I loved sports. It is like truly at the core of my being. It just brings me so much joy. And as an adult, as a mom of four, as a single mom of four, I often am short on time. But I always try and make time to play tennis. One, because it's a social outlet, but I have noticed this very specific feeling in my body when I play tennis because that's the sport that's accessible to me. I feel such that like flow calm, but like
Mm-hmm.
joy. When I think of joy,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I think of that like hyper, like whatever. It is a whole different type of joy. And it's just me returning to my true self. My body feels the absolute best when it is moving and thinking and sporting all at the same time. And I'm like, I think that that is one of those things that's like, that's important for me on my own journey to make time for, because that brings me so much centering. It doesn't matter if I
Mm-hmm.
win or lose. I mean, I love to win, don't get me wrong. But like the fact that I got to go out there and feel that feeling of that flow state of just being so peacefully exuberant, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
love that. The other thing I've learned is that like so for those of us who have experienced trauma, and I know I can't imagine the marks that that has left on your poor body, being in the hospital and being in the ICU. Your body remembers experiences like that too, where
Yeah.
I've had to unpack that the
Yeah.
body, although it is telling me the truth, I have to be able to decode what is a trauma response and the signals
Yes.
for that and what is not. So like what I discovered
Yes.
with my therapist the other week was that like when I'm learning to listen to my own body, when something feels like it's wrong, if it feels alert wrong, like if my energy, for lack of a better word, has this like volcanic sort of like very vertical, like flying through the air feeling, then I know that that's my body being like trauma, 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 but it's not real. Like if I can sit in that slow knowing where it almost feels like I think about like the volcano emoji and then like the yoga emoji, but like where it's that, like, calm sort of, it feels very like horizontal, for lack of a better word. Like I can
Yes.
just, and it's like that quiet whisper that continues to repeat itself over and over. So I don't have to make a
Yeah.
snap decision. I've really sat and thought
Yeah.
with it where I'm like, that's the truth, not the volcanic. Oh my God, it's
Mm-hmm.
happening again. It's like, look around. Is it really happening again? No, you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like this still may not be right
Yes.
for you. And you can sit and go slow with that until you know that feeling. You start to recognize that feeling like when you, those moments of sitting with yourself every day. I think that,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. It's if you experience right, because we can be essentially what's happening in those situations is your nervous system is having some kind of reaction, right? Your
yes,
nervous system is designed to essentially keep you alive and keep you safe.
yeah,
And that means that anytime that we start to go out of those bounds, even when it's good, we can
yeah,
get triggered or activated. And like you're saying, it's a different type of trigger, right? What you're describing is maybe we're triggered because of something that happened in the past. And then we have to remember, okay, my body is just trying to keep me safe right now. That's
absolutely.
why it's
Yes.
experiencing this. But am I actually safe? Can I begin to build my capacity to sit with this thing that feels like an edge, like it's taking me out of my comfort zone, but it's
Yes.
actually a good thing? So maybe that's telling the truth on all of your dates and not
Yep.
people pleasing or whatever, right? Like
Yep.
really just showing up, not
Yep.
performing, just I'm me, this is it. And even
Absolutely.
that can be a little bit triggering and make your nervous system feel like, oh my God, we're out of control, but it's no,
Right.
but
Right.
actually we're
Should I
safe.
fire? Should I press
And
the alarm? Yeah.
exactly, right. It's yeah, it's beautiful. And just the fact that you're in touch with that now and you can recognize kind of the difference is really powerful. And like you said, having tennis, having things in our life that allow us to, what I love about tennis is you cannot be thinking about anything else.
It's so
You
true.
really do have to just be so present. And that's
Yeah.
the point of meditation.
Yeah.
That's the point of yoga. It's not that you stop thinking, but you do want to be involved in something in your life where you have to be so present in your body
Mm.
that it really just allows you to come into that moment. And yeah, that's where that kind of peace and that ability to start to, yes,
Yeah.
tap into the flow and hear your own inner voice. Like
I
those
love
are
that.
the activities you need to have in your life to set up those conditions.
So let's say we're taking those 10 minutes a day to sit and listen to our body. And let's say like I like I've got aches in my elbows. And I'm like, why are my
Mhm.
elbows aching? Like, do I have Lyme's disease? And like, I love to just go down the deep, deep rabbit holes. So when
Right.
I'm sitting there, like, walk me through how I connect to whatever I'm feeling so that like I can actually listen. And I love how you gave different examples of sometimes you hear words, sometimes you just kind of know, but like tell me what that feels like for those who haven't really scanned the body yet and have 5 to 10
Yeah.
minutes that they can find. How do we do it?
Yeah, I love your example of, you know that your elbow is hurting.
Right.
You want to I think in a meditation or a breath work, or maybe you're just sitting for 10 minutes with your journal and your phone is in another room and there's
Mhm.
no distractions. I think for me, it's allowing allowing the space for just really clarity to come through on maybe
Mhm.
what's the best next step.
Oh, I like
So
that.
going back to that kind of overwhelm
Yeah.
that you were talking about. So
Yeah.
let's say if there's somebody who's listening to this podcast right now who does maybe have something going on with their health and they're really not sure where to go next.
Mhm.
It's just listen for just the next step.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like, okay, I'm going to like call a doctor today. I'm going to call a physical therapist. I'm going to
Yeah.
reach out to Meg. I'm going
Yeah.
to whatever. You will just know. You'll
You will
hear
know. Yeah.
or you'll somehow know what
Mhm.
that next step is. So I think I think a lot of us have been running through life in this autopilot state
Yeah.
of this like high productivity. But when we're in that state all the time, we're not giving ourselves a space for that type of clarity to really come in. And
Yeah.
so I think that's what it is for me is just what's my next best step. I don't have to know the whole picture here,
Right.
but what am I feeling called to do next? And maybe I decide, you know what, actually I'm going to go to an infrared sauna, or
Yeah.
there's so many things you could do. So,
And I
yeah.
think also like this notion women have such a hard time not being perfect, and I think
Yeah.
that's got to go. Like, oh my Lord,
Yeah.
that's got to go. But sometimes I find myself in my old life, and I am forever a work in progress, but and I
Me
only give
too.
my own examples just to be vulnerable so that if anyone had anything to relate to, this is definitely not the Betsy show, but just for the sake of people having something to grasp to, like um and several years ago when I really wasn't really in touch with myself and just kind of like hustling and pushing and climbing the stairs and going as fast as I could and not really checking in with my body or the environment around me or the relationships in my life, so on and so forth. If I got to the point where I was so sick, whether it be like digestive issues or, like stress in my body that makes my bones ache or whatever it may be, I would be so desperate to feel better that if I would ever to try and listen to my body in that state, it would be like, please just give me the right answer, like just so terrified. But like to your point of there are so many options available that like you have to also be like, if it didn't work, that's okay. Like just
Yeah.
try the next thing kind of thing.
There's
Like this,
so much trial and error.
yeah. And like, okay,
There really
so
is.
how do you embrace that? Because that's stressful. You just want to feel better.
It's okay if you try something and it doesn't work. You're not a
Yeah.
failure. A lot of us,
Love that. Did
and I know
everyone
this
hear
is
that? You are not a failure if you try something and it didn't work. Oh, I'm talking to myself again. That's weird.
you're not a failure. And truthfully, when it comes to our health and our bodies, I firmly, I guess, have experienced this, and I think it's true of a lot of our experiences. We really have not been given all the information about our bodies and what it really takes to thrive. I think that's where holistic practitioners like myself really come into play. But so it's just, I do see this in clients a lot where sometimes they'll come to me and they have been trying to address something for
Yeah.
a long time and they do feel like a failure. And maybe they're even like shaming themselves at this point. And it's like, it's okay. It's not
Mm.
it's not your job to necessarily know everything. You do want to try to find good resources, whether that's people like me. I mean, there's a lot of information flying around on social media these days, and
Yeah.
frankly, some of it's good and some of it's not. Everybody's so different that it can be very hard to kind of parse through what actually works for the individual. But yeah, I would say that as far as embracing the trial and error, just know that you will, by doing that, you're going to find what works for you. It's like
Yeah.
there's this saying I love that says, there's a 1 in a million chance that it will happen, but if you give up, it will be zero.
I love that. God, that's so
So
true.
if there's something going on and you're trying stuff and it's not working, you're not a failure. Reach out to me, reach out to somebody who really is an expert and can really help get you there, because it just can take time and everybody needs support with this stuff. I have my own amazing practitioner who I call all the time.
I
I
love
don't do
that.
this myself.
I love
Yeah,
that. It's
I
so
I
good
have
that
a
you
team
said
of
that.
people. Like
Yes.
you have to. You
Yeah.
really do have to. So, I think also just keeping in mind we live in a very complicated environment.
Hmm.
Our bodies are so connected to the planet, and the planet is not doing so well because
Right.
we've really been extracting and polluting and all this. So our bodies are really struggling to keep up as well. And so, you're also not alone. I really think this is why, again, it's just so critical to start to build up your toolkit of things that do make you feel good, like
Yeah.
tennis and so on, because we really do need it more than ever.
More than ever. So let's say I want to really make this accessible to people. Um, if there's like, what is sort of like the basic toolkit plan of like, if we think about like, I'm almost thinking about it, this is just the way my brain processes, but like the modules of the course that you took, are there, or like I'm thinking about, okay, you've mentioned environmental factors, you've mentioned diet, you've mentioned sleep, you've mentioned like, are there just sort of like, here's the baseline of like, make sure you get vitamin D. Anyway, like kind of what are those like tips that you have to make it accessible for those who are thinking about this? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Give it a
yeah, I love that. Yeah, yeah. So this makes me think of, everybody's heard the term biohacking,
Oh
and
yeah.
I
Yeah.
find it to be a very non-feminine term,
It does.
and yet
Yeah.
I'm definitely a biohacker. I don't have a different word. Like
I
we need to
love
come
that.
up with a different word.
So how would
Maybe
you
for
define
women the word is just wellness,
yeah.
I guess.
How would you
But
define
yes,
biohacking?
I would define biohacking as a lifestyle where you are doing different steps every day, which I'll describe specifically,
Yep.
to support your body to be in its most, I would say, natural. I would even say like its blueprint type of
Ooh.
state.
Yeah.
Because again, if you've got a lot of things going on, inflammation, digestive issues, your body has a baseline
Mm.
of harmony, essentially, that
Yes.
it should be running in all the way up until you're 100 years old and you peacefully die in your sleep one night, right?
Yes, please. Like to say
That's
that. Yep.
that's available. Like that is possible, or older.
Gosh.
So it's really the practices that support us to be as healthy as possible.
So what are
A good
the like day-to-day biohacks baseline toolkit?
a great the foundational toolkit. The most important thing is your sleep. Your
Ugh,
sleep.
I suck.
If your sleep is if your sleep is not so great, if your sleep is not optimal, it's very difficult for everything else in your life to be working. I find for me in particular, my mood is the number one thing that's impacted by my sleep.
Yeah.
Specifically, I notice the earlier before midnight that I actually get to sleep, the better my mood is the next day. If I somehow stay up past midnight, the next day is going to be a little bit off, no
Yeah.
matter what.
Yeah.
Like I'm just not going to feel like my most kind of clear me self. But so when it comes to sleep, if I were speaking to a client, I would, of course, find out like specifically what is going on. And so then you kind of fine tune, maybe there's some supplementation, something to help kind of calm you down so you can fall asleep really well, whether that's like adaptogens, ashwagandha, these different things that help our body to kind of settle. The number one thing, try to be off of your devices at least, if you can, an hour before you're actually going to sleep. This is largely because when we talk about sleep, I have to talk about circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm is very, very tied to our hormones.
It is?
Also, yes. It's also very tied to our light exposures. So I'm going to try not to get like too dorky and sciencey here, but
I love geeking out. Feel free to be as dorky and sciencey as you want. I love this kind of stuff.
So some really simple things that you can do to support your circadian rhythm. Make sure in the morning. So think before 9 a.m. if possible, before 10 a.m. Try to get some direct sunlight in your eyes. You don't need to stare directly at the sun, but gaze softly in the direction of the sun, and you will literally feel like the different light rays kind of pouring in. That actually starts the biochemical process that creates melatonin at night.
Amazing.
And melatonin is a hormone.
Yeah.
So
I should know this. I don't know this.
No, I think most people don't. I think we talk about hormones and we automatically think like estrogen, testosterone, but there's actually like 50 plus that are very intertwined in everything from sleep to mood. You know, there's dopamine is a hormone, just so many different things.
Oh my God. Literally. So do you have to be outside, or if it's freezing cold in Ohio, can I go to the window and softly look outside?
Yes. Yes.
I know it's not
That's
ideal,
good.
but I'm asking for a friend.
even if you go outside for 1 minute and do it or something, that's still really good too.
For a minute.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a long time, but that is a very good practice to have. And then at night, it's more about managing your blue light exposure. So blue light is what's in our computers, our phones.
TVs?
It's what's TVs, LED light bulbs, which are sort of all the rage now.
Yeah.
But at night, if you can, when you're at home, and this is what gets sort of very biohackery, try to minimize your blue light exposure. So if you're going to watch TV, fine, but maybe do you need all your lights on? Can you turn your lights off?
Yeah.
I love amber bulbs. Some people that really take this stuff seriously will actually get red light bulbs and put those in to use at night. I mean, you can go as far as you want or don't, but there's also blue light blocking glasses.
I have them on right now.
Which you have on, which is amazing. So it's really thinking about if we think about how we lived before we created all this technology, after sundown, we just had candlelight. Yeah. And so our bodies are really not designed to have all this light exposure, and it can be interrupting our sleep. And I think people don't really realize that. So that's somewhere to start, is just maybe become more aware. I call it your light diet. Just become more aware of like what kind of light you're getting and when. And that can help. And then also, if you can, don't sleep with your phone in your room or by your bed, because your phone is emitting a lot of electromagnetic frequency that is disruptive to the nervous system. So ideally, if you can, have it in a different room, get yourself a Hatch alarm clock, get yourself a landline if you need to have like an emergency line, so you don't have to have your phone in your room.
Wow.
So those are some of my little tips to just explore if you're not doing these things already.
I'm literally obsessed with this. Okay, can I ask a very specific question again? Completely asking for a friend. But
do it. Yes, Ohio, ask for that friend.
In the Midwest, there's such gray skies. Well,
Yeah.
for months, the sun is so, as you know, from going to school in Ohio, like the sun is
Right.
far, far, far away. It's buried. How
Yes.
do you, and like you
Yes.
feel that deep depletion, even if you get
Yes.
out, like what do you do? What do you do?
So when the sun is out, definitely try to get yourself out there. And
Okay.
then I know it's not out a lot of the time. So when it's not out, yes, taking a vitamin D supplement is a good idea. I
Okay.
like a D3 with K2 in
Okay.
particular.
Okay.
Eating foods that have D is also really helpful. So think like eggs, fish, things of that nature. If you have a red light device or access to one, sometimes if there's a place that has infrared saunas, it'll probably have sometimes there's red light in the sauna.
Mhm.
That's also a really great thing to do any time of year, but during the winter in particular, you don't get the full spectrum of light that the sun has, but you get more. You
Yeah.
get more than if you don't use
Yeah.
red light, essentially.
I love that. So do you use
And
red light during the day?
I like to use it in the morning
Yeah.
typically,
Yeah.
and during the day is fine as well. Some of the more recent research is saying to even like,
Oh, sorry.
if you're in the sauna or something,
Uh-huh.
try to like keep your eyes closed because there is so much light going on that you
Yeah.
don't want to like overexpose your eyes to it, similar to how you wouldn't like stare directly at the sun.
Sure.
So red light's a beautiful tool.
Cool.
And just, even though it's cold and gray, getting outside, even when you don't want to, and
Right.
it's just like
Right.
miserable and cold, just
Just do it. Have a little
try.
fun.
Just
Yeah.
get out there. Yeah.
This is okay because I constantly feel like my sleep is, I mean, just don't get a lot of hours, but at least
Yes.
that could up my quality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you could even, a beautiful thing to just kind of help wind down and just keep things that are going to keep the body warm are going to feel good, whether that's a sauna, an Epsom salt bath. I love to do hot yoga
Yeah. Me
in the winter
too. Great
because,
idea.
again, we don't have the sun, but we can create that experience of warmth, and you want to still be sweating, even though it's cold. You do want to be working out to the point of sweating. It's important for your detoxification and your mood. Again, so many things come back to,
I love that.
like, if you go play tennis somewhere, right? I'm sure you're
Getting sweaty.
sweating
Yeah.
by the time you're done.
Oh my God. I love that. Okay.
Lots of things.
So we've got the baseline sleep, and I'm sorry I didn't let you stay baseline. I had so many questions, but tell me more.
It's
What else
okay.
is sort of the baseline besides sleep, or like for the
I
children?
think the next big thing is to take a look at how you are really nourishing yourself throughout the day. A lot of people are not necessarily getting adequate protein and adequate nutrition overall, and that has a lot to do with our food system in the United States and the fact that a lot of our food is a little bit depleted of nutrients from the pesticides and things that we've used. However, so an easy place to start here would be, and this is also great for your hormones, is think about trying to eat either about 2/3 of your body weight in protein in grams.
Wow.
During the course of the day. Yes, it's a lot more than most of us are having. And this is really important for your blood sugar stability.
Yeah.
And I recently have been hearing it said by some different doctors that your body will continue to be hungry during the day until you hit the right amount of protein.
Wow.
Which is why I think, I know for me, I used to be more of a, like, I guess, toast and fruit at breakfast or something like that. Now I'm more a few slices of turkey bacon, some fruit, and maybe a piece of toast with almond butter. I'm trying to hit 20 to 30 grams of protein at breakfast. So that's a great place to start.
Yeah.
Yes, if you're not already, especially if you are a caffeine drinker, you want to try to have this with or before, ideally, your caffeine. I'm not perfect at this. I usually kind of have them together.
Yeah.
But
So you're a breakfast man too. You're not a faster.
oh yeah, not a faster. I think that fasting has an important role in my mind as a therapeutic sometimes for some people, in the same way that any more extreme and specific way of eating may serve a purpose to heal something specific at a specific time,
Yeah.
but is not great as a consistent lifestyle every day. And especially for women, our hormones don't tend to respond as well to fasting, and you actually may be really sort of throwing off your blood sugar.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not really a fan of it. I think if you naturally have maybe 12 hours between, let's say you eat dinner at 8 and you eat breakfast at 8, and that's just your natural time frame,
Yeah.
I think that's okay. But if it's not that way, you don't have to make it that way. And I'm not really a fan of going past that.
And does it sort of fit the theme that anything that feels that kind of extreme application of anything probably isn't what this blueprint is designed for?
Generally speaking, yes. Yeah. Again, I think the only time that more extreme things make sense are I can think of a time where when I was deep in healing my body, I followed something called the autoimmune protocol for a while, which is a very specific, it's similar to a paleo way of eating. And it made sense for me at that time, but it's a little bit too restrictive to continue for a long period of time. So I did it for about 3 months, and then I, expanded from there. But generally, yeah, I think extremes either way.
Yeah.
It's like anything that's going to cause you more stress and worry to try to follow is really going against the purpose of doing the thing in the first place.
That's the perfect way to put it, because I mean, the whole point is to return to a more peaceful state and to really return to your true natural way versus like retrofitting to a lifestyle that's been prescribed to you.
And we're all so different. And I think you've probably seen this from following me on social media. I generally don't make blanket recommendations of like everybody should take this one supplement, or everybody should eat this way, or everybody should do this. I will share what's working for me and maybe what I've seen supportive for a lot of people, but every body's needs are so different, right?
Yeah.
So following kind of an extreme is not a huge fan usually.
Oh my God. Okay. That is also incredibly liberating. Okay. So we've got to get our circadian rhythm right. We have to focus on protein for food. What else?
What topic area? Well, what about
Just in terms of like baseline? Or okay, you've talked a lot. You've dabbled into environmental.
Yeah, environmental. Ooh, this is a juicy one.
Yeah.
With this, I do. A good place to start is thinking about detoxifying the products that you're using in terms of anything that you're putting on your body. So moving more towards the clean skincare realm. Also, the cleaning supplies that you have around your house. This is something that one of the tests that I run for a lot of my clients, it's called the total toxin burden. And it looks at everything from metals to mycotoxins, which are the toxins that indoor molds give off, to forever chemicals, which we're hearing, PFAS, which we're hearing a lot about now. BPA is in there, lots of different things. And pesticides, herbicides. So I see everything and I see what people's bodies are accumulating. And it really does matter what you're using and what's around you. So, if you haven't already, that's something I would definitely explore. You really don't want to be using these like chemical cleaners and bleaches and things like that around your home. And there's so many incredible, like Branch Basics is my favorite.
Yeah.
They make
Okay.
incredible cleaning. It's all natural essential oils. It's really effective, but that would be another. And think about like if you're burning scented candles, try to get the ones that are done with just essential oils instead of the
Ooh.
more kind of chemical ones, because those are releasing a lot of chemicals into the air that you're then breathing in.
I never thought about that. I love candles. I'm gonna go look at all my candles.
And it's not right. And again, with this stuff, it's like not to scare people, but it is to just start to build that awareness of, oh, maybe I'll make a different choice next time. When this bottle of bleach runs out, I'm going to get a clean,
Yeah.
I'm going to use like vinegar and water instead, just as effective and not full of chemicals, because the bleach is also bad for the environment. It's a whole thing. But again, all of these things are very, once again, disruptive to the hormones. And some of them, yeah. So that's also
I love
a
that.
beautiful place to
Just to continue to evaluate and make different decisions if you see fit. But that, like, they say like your body, your skin is sort of your biggest, would you say organ?
it's your biggest organ.
Organ?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like,
It's one of your drainage and detox organs. So it is really important to just be thoughtful about what you use. I remember I gave a talk about this when I was in grad school in 2013. And I
no
think
way.
people thought I was like insane. People were like, this is crazy. Because back then there just was not, Goop
Right.
wasn't like quite out yet. I think they like were maybe just launching. Like the clean beauty conversation was not really a thing yet. And there I was being like, we got to be thinking about like what, and I think people just thought I was nuts. But anyway, it's important.
It is important.
I have the test results to prove it. Like when you see it, you're just like, wow, no, this is real.
I'm definitely we're going to do the test for me. I am definitely.
Yeah, we should. I would love to.
Oh my God. I would.
And it's just good information, right? Like I had one guy that I tested and he had really high BPA, plastic.
Yeah.
And of course there's plastic everywhere, but he was like, I don't get it. Like we're very conscious about not eating out of plastic. He finally remembered that he has a, cup that he bought, like at Walmart, like 10 years ago that just sits on his nightstand. And every night that's like where he has his water.
Yeah.
And that's what it was coming from. And he's like, oh my God, like I'll just get a glass, So it's just little things that you can kind of notice, like where could I swap in something and more organic and natural and better for me.
And does he feel better after he's like, okay, I've lowered my BPA level in my body? Like, can he tell?
I would say yes. When you really detoxify your environment and your body, yes, you can feel the difference. And this looks a little bit different for everyone. I know for me personally, I went through a whole mold detox thing and wow, everything changed. I made everything you can think of. Everything. Everything. Yeah. I mean, we can test.
Oh, we're going to see.
And there's effective ways to do this. And the thing is, we have detox organs. The reason things become an issue again is our bodies just have not evolved enough to keep up with everything that we've put into our environment. So that's all there is to it. You just need a little extra support sometimes too.
So you mentioned sweating is like working to the point of sweat is so important for detox. So like I do kind of get this, like if I were to try and tell me if I'm boiling the ocean in the right way to think about bigger picture, but like essentially our environment and our lifestyle has so many inputs essentially that aren't natural to how we are made, that you have to sort of do everything you can. Like when you rest, that's almost like a detox. When you fuel, that is like the energy to live as you should with protein. As you think about minimizing the input of like your environment. Like it's one thing to live in existence but it's another thing to be actively adding these things to your skin, in your home, etc. But then how else do we shed or detox?
Yes, you've got it right. Yeah,
Good.
some everyday types of things you can do. So yes, so sweating, making sure that you are sweating, whether that's from working out or going to an infrared sauna. I mean, you can sweat every day, but at least aim to try like 3 days a week
I
if
love
you
that.
can, if not more. That's really important.
Yeah.
And making sure that you are, this is just another foundational thing. If anybody errs more on the side of like constipation, you
Yeah.
want to try to address that. It's very important. That's a major detox thing. You want to make sure that you are regular. You got to be every day. If not, these things are also kind of accumulating. So that's an important thing, whether that's, if there's something going on with I do gut testing with clients and we kind of look at like why these things might be happening, if they are happening. That's an important one. Yes, sleep is important. Your body does do a lot of detoxing in your sleep. So again, that's foundational. Then there's things like a lot of people probably heard of dry brushing before the shower. Anything you can do to support your lymphatic system. Your lymphatic system is responsible for essentially moving toxins to get out of the body. So you want to keep that in good shape. Your liver is part of your lymphatic system.
Yeah. Gotta
So
be
you want to take good care of your liver. Right. Be kind to your liver.
Kind.
And then eating the rainbow. So making sure you're getting a lot of different color of produce. There's a lot of vegetables and herbs that are part of the different like phase 1, phase 2 detoxification in the liver, so on and so forth. So really that does matter. So you want to make sure you're eating good organic vegetables and getting a variety of different things. And if there's something that you are worried about in particular, like if you've maybe had exposure to indoor mold at some point or so on, and maybe your health kind of declined during that time and maybe hasn't fully bounced back, then there may be a deeper type of, when I talk about detox, I think often we've come to associate that with like juice cleanses and things like that.
Right.
But when I refer to it, I'm talking more about usually supplement protocols that involve things like binders, which actually help to bind to toxins in the body and pull them out, and also supporting our drainage system, which is, there's detox is like, if you think of your body sort of taking the trash out, and then drainage is like the trash truck picking up the trash and taking it out of the neighborhood. And you got to make sure that they're both working. And your drainage is like, your drainage pathways are sweating, peeing, pooping.
Yeah.
Those are the main things. You want all of that to be working well.
So one thing about sweating, if you're injured or if you're low on time, is it better to go, like, if you can't do anything that day, like, is it better to go sit in the sauna for 20 minutes?
Yeah, that's a great thing to do. Yes.
Not that
go sit in a sauna for 20 minutes.
I sure don't, but
I don't either. Yeah. A lot of cities and towns now have various kind of wellness spaces where you can book a sauna. So you can start there. You can also even just do a hot bath. So not to the point where you're going to burn yourself, but hot enough that if you get into that bath for 20 minutes, you will sweat. Right. And I'm sure most of us have had a bath like this before.
Yes.
Where you get in and you're literally like sweat is running down. You can do that too.
Yeah. Does the hot tub count?
Yeah. Yeah. I sometimes worry about like the cleanliness of the hot tub, but if the hot tub is like real clean, that's a good idea. Yeah, it's helpful. And my only tip with a bath is, I feel like I'm going to make people's like brains explode with this, but
Oh, brace yourself.
get a shower filter if you don't have one. You don't want to be showering in that tap water.
Oh, yeah, for
So, and you
sure.
don't want to be bathing in it. You don't want to be drinking it either.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just there's a lot going on in the tap water these days. Go to ewg.org. You can look up your zip code and see what's in your tap water.
Oh, I don't know if I want
But
to.
um, but I love personally. I use the Jolie filter. That's a
Yeah,
great one.
yeah.
And if you're gonna run a bath, like you can also get like faucet filters. I don't have one. I just run it from the shower head,
Yeah,
and that way
filter.
you're bathing in the cleanest water. Yes,
Oh,
I think it's something we don't think about a lot, but
right, but that's easy enough. We
it's
can do
easy.
that.
That's the thing. A lot of these things become these kind of like easy swaps. And I'm very 80/20. Like,
Yeah.
do I love to eat organic? Yes. But when I'm out at a restaurant, am I going to worry about it? No.
Awesome.
No. Because again, that's where the stress, we don't want to become so. Sometimes once you become informed about these things, it does feel overwhelming, like you're
Yeah.
saying, but you don't
Yeah.
have to do it perfectly. Just focus on the easy, like low hanging fruit,
Yep.
control your controllables, and
Yeah.
the rest you kind of got to let it go.
Let it go. And like if you all of a sudden get some controllables under your belt and you're ready to try another one, like give it a go.
Yes,
Oh, that makes it so
exactly.
much more approachable because like sometimes, like you are so deeply involved in your practice and you do so many things and it's incredibly inspiring and but it's also incredibly liberating to hear that like okay, you don't have to get it all right. And I'm sure you've built this over time. You've added layer after layer. And like sometimes and maybe it's just my brain. Sometimes I can get overwhelmed, but like, I'm like, no, this is totally doable. Like I could start literally with a filter and making sure I sweat a little bit more.
Exactly. Again, it's just what's the next step? You don't have to
Yeah.
do it all overnight, but noticing even just like you said, what feels approachable to you. And I hope that's something I try to really convey on Instagram is like
You do.
approachable, accessible,
You
kind of
do.
everybody can do these things,
Yeah.
because there's really expensive wellness stuff that you can do, and those things are amazing too. And there's really free to equivalent to what you're spending now things that you can do. It's just making a different choice.
And I love the way that you show up online because it's never so many people talk about health from like oh my God, you're putting toxins in your body, like from a scare tactic. And you're just like,
Right.
hey, just so you know, there are other options. And this is how the body works. And like, you will know what to explore if you just sit for a second and listen. And what do you feel curious about? Because that's what you're actually going to execute on versus like I have
Yeah.
to again, it goes back to women feeling like I have to be perfect. If I can't be completely detoxed, I'm doing it wrong, which is absolutely sounds like not the case.
I appreciate that so much. I've been very intentional about not using that fear inducing voice because I know exactly what you're talking about and I see it a lot. And I just don't think it's helpful because, again, if we're sending people into this fearful place, you're literally triggering their nervous systems and you're going to create the exact result you're telling them to try to avoid with
Yeah.
a toxin.
God.
So I'm all about let's just build resilience and be empowered with the information and then be able to make our own choices and take responsibility. So,
I love
yeah.
that. I think this is a really awesome segue into, and I love you're very like pro mental health and like very sort of like in your body and as it relates to mental health and your relationship health and all the things that you've mentioned. So like when we're talking about this, it's not fear-based, it's not a perfect thing, it's a what's for you thing to feel like you are most in your body and in your best body. But how does this connect to mental health?
Yeah. Mental health, it's interesting. Mental health is physical health. It is the
Ooh,
same thing. It's not different. Emotions live in the body. It's all connected. And this is why I'm so big on people really finding out what essentially physical practices make you your best self in terms of your mental health, what really supports your mood. Because again, it's not separate. And one example that I can give here is when we think about, we were talking about, protein and making sure you're eating enough protein for your blood sugar stability. Something that happens when our blood sugar drops is it can create feelings of panic or anxiety, or mostly panic and anxiety, because your body literally starts to think that it's starving.
God.
So that's just one example of so many things. And the way I think of emotions, it's not so much that I think of them this way. I think that they are this way.
Yeah.
Emotions they're different energies. They're constantly flowing and moving through the body. There's also, in Chinese medicine in particular, different emotions are associated with different organs, right? So you
Yeah.
can really go down a rabbit hole with this stuff, but I think just starting to think that, I think that talk therapy and everything that we have set up to address mental health specifically is super important.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you have to be taking care of your physicality in a way to support those neurotransmitters, and really a lot of it also comes down to your hormones.
Yeah.
So again, this is where movement, nutrition, good sleep, healthy relationships, that's a big part of it.
It really
Is just so vital. I don't think we can have the conversation about mental health anymore without talking about our lifestyles.
It's literally, I love how you explained that when you aren't fueling yourself properly, it actually makes your body feel panic. So if you're sitting here trying to be your calmest, peaceful, most centered self, but you've made your body feel like it's sitting in a room with lions, you'll never
Right.
feel good. You'll never in your
You're
head.
not going to feel safe.
No,
Yeah.
you can't feel safe.
Yeah. And of course, none of this is to minimize panic disorders or anything like that at all.
Yeah.
It's really just, if you are someone that suffers from something like that, or you do have anxiety, really taking an honest inventory of like, well, could I, again, trial and error, could I try something different? Could I try a different type of workout? Am I getting enough protein? Am I sleeping enough? Am I getting enough electrolytes? Am I getting enough minerals? Minerals are big for, like, when we talk about, not to like go too far on this tangent, but when we talk about
tangents.
like postpartum, a lot of what's often happening with different postpartum mood disorders is the body is so depleted and needs like way more nutrients than we're typically getting. I mean, like high supplementation, like tons of minerals, like really nourishing foods. And just, that's not, I think we're becoming more aware of this, but we weren't set up that way per se.
Right.
Like to treat that year as this really sacred time of like deep, way more nourishment than maybe we previously had. That's just kind of one,
it's like, it is
tangent,
truly like, it is deep recovery, and it's like, but you're returning to work after 6 weeks if you're lucky.
Exactly.
So like,
exactly.
oh my God. Plus you're like, here's a baby, it cries and your body's been through trauma. Yeah. It's just,
exactly. There's way more support that women should be receiving during that time, I think, culturally speaking.
You mentioned electrolytes, and I get that conceptually. What is an example of a mineral? I should know better. When I think of electrolytes, I think of salt. Is that right? Am I getting that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's minerals. There's so many, but there's literally hundreds of minerals, but copper, things like that. I recommend typically like zinc, copper, all. So most of us are not getting enough. Minerals are naturally occurring in the soil and in our food. However, because the food is generally a little bit depleted of the actual nutrients, most of us aren't getting enough. So this is where, yeah, a mineral, like a trace mineral complex, can be very helpful. Even drinking, I love like spring water, mineral waters for this kind of thing that actually really does make a difference. Calcium. I mean, there's so many, but
That's just
this
so
is
interesting.
another,
Minerals weren't even on my
and
radar.
something, when we do have enough minerals, our body is actually better at excreting heavy metals we don't want. Um, and accumulation of heavy metals is often associated with depression. A lot of people will have depressive type symptoms if they have a buildup of heavy metals. So again, it's like you look at the environment, you look at the body, the set of symptoms, and just knowing there's always probably something you can do to sort of restore some of that harmony.
I love harmony. Oh, isn't that just what we all want? Oh my God.
And it's a work in progress. I mean, it's the
Yeah.
same for me. I'm not perfect at all, and I slip out of my habits all the time and have to kind of come back, and we're also, our lives are constantly changing.
Yeah.
So your habits have to be adaptable too.
Right. And like to just
Yeah.
have I don't know, I think it's so peaceful to be like, what sounds interesting? Let me start there. And then you kind of get hooked with the like, well, that felt good. And I actually feel better. So let me sit with myself and see what else sounds interesting to explore. But it sounds like
Definitely.
also from your practice with the test that you run that like knowledge is power. So like
Yeah.
also you get to, you don't have, it's kind of like a duality type approach.
Yeah. And I think it's very validating. What I see a lot is I will have clients who have been seeing a number of doctors over the years to try to get to the bottom of a symptom or an issue, and they've just never really maybe either gotten the validation or the answers, and to actually see something on a test, to finally actually have a lab come back that doesn't say normal, that actually
Yeah.
says actually there is this kind of low grade, infection, or this virus, or this
Yeah.
whatever, is extremely validating for people. Like,
Yes.
it's never in your head, but to really see it on paper and to then understand, okay, that's why I've been feeling this way, and there are things I can do about it, is very empowering.
Oh my God, absolutely. Oh, that rings true for so many different examples in my life where you're just relieved to finally have someone say, like, actually, you're right. Something is not right. We can fix this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
it. Oh my
And it
God.
takes courage. I mean, I always think it's amazing anytime somebody reaches out and says, "Hey, I've got this thing going on, and I'm finally like, I got to know what it is.
I
Can
love
you help
that.
me?" And I'm like, "Let's go."
Let's give it a go. Oh, that's so I'm like, okay, we're signing up immediately after this. Okay, so if I try and like really baseline it for people, when we think about integrative medicine, it is looking not even just the 360 of your body, of like, but it is the 360 of your environment, the inside, the outside, and
Yeah.
sort of the end goal being like these moments of harmony where you really feel like you're operating as you were meant to operate, and that you do have the ability to sit with your body and just have a listen and see what
Mm-hmm.
seems interesting and continue to explore, but that you do have the power, and you should take the power to take your health into your own hands and think about your environment and think about what you're putting in your body, and to completely relinquish control of being perfect and to just
Yeah.
continue to explore this, because we are all different and feel different than we did when we were 10, when we were 20, when we were 30, when we're married, when we're not.
Yeah.
Like, it's just
Yeah.
life ebbs and flows, and your health, I think, gets to ebb and flow with it.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh,
Definitely.
I
Definitely.
am obsessed with this.
And a lot of it too has to do with something I've been loving hearing you talk about a lot, which is that emotional, relational side of things.
Mhm.
Like, even just, I truly think one of the most important wellness practices is identifying your boundaries and
Yes.
beginning to set them and honor them. And often that's a boundary with ourselves, right? Like,
Yeah.
I will not stay up past 11
I
tonight.
know.
I will make
I
myself
will
go to
work.
sleep. Like, that's
Self
just one
boundaries are like truly one of my biggest things I'm working on.
huge.
Mm-hmm.
Same. And things like that are so important, again, for this baseline of health, because so many of us were conditioned to ignore our own needs and put other people's needs first. And if we
Yes.
think about it like from a very practical lens, that could be ignoring your own hunger signals,
Mm-hmm.
thirst signals, or ignoring that instinct of, something here doesn't feel right. Your body knows things your brain doesn't know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like you hear these stories of people like, I don't, there's so many wild stories of people that have had hair on their back rise up, and it
Yep.
turns out somebody was following them, and
Yep.
they your body can sense things that your brain is not aware of. So I think really tapping into that knowledge and honoring it and listening to it is huge, and is going to help you create so much health, because that's really where a lot of it starts. Like knowing your own values,
Mm.
making choices that are aligned with that. When we are in kind of like a people pleasing type behavior or something where we're leaving our own truth, it
Yeah.
creates a lot of fragmentation and confusion in your system,
I
right? Like
feel
we all
so
can
hard.
think about how that feels.
Yes. Yes. It
Like
feels
I
so
remember, yeah, it could be your stomach is
enough.
or your chest, you might feel that anxiety, right? Like it's so real. So even just, I consider that a hugely foundational health practice to really honor those needs and boundaries
And values. I think that
and values.
the
It's
ability to
huge.
have a toolkit for decision making for what you choose to engage in, whether that be professionally, personally, for your health, whatever it may be, what just sort of the environment that you surround yourself in. So often I default to, does this align to my values? And you can calibrate. Like that is truly what I love about your story is that you had a moment where you really had to pivot. Life happened to you, and you could sit here and feel like a victim because you went through a really awful, you almost lost your life, but
Yeah.
you decided to take matters into your own hands in an empowering way and also relinquish control where you really can't control, and to also then turn around and to be able to help others is like a really, really beautiful, beautiful story. And I think that's why
Thank you.
women's stories are so important to tell, that things happen and it's up to you to decide how you're going to handle it. And we're all going to fumble as we handle it, but you get to choose how it goes. And I think you're,
It's really the only thing you can control is
yeah,
how do you react to it. And yeah, and having so much grace with yourself. I mean, it took me probably at least a year to be able to tell that story without,
yep, yeah,
so it feels like ancient history now, but
yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
I
I'm
fully agree with all of
super
that.
proud of you. And it has been
Thank you.
really awesome to watch your journey from afar since we are no longer in the same city. And I feel like you have cracked open a whole really peaceful line of questioning for me, where usually it's like you hear about the latest diet or the health trend and you're like, oh my God, I don't know anything. And I'm like, now I'm just a curious cat. And I'm like, we're so going to sign up and we're going to do all these fun things. And I just can't wait. But if everyone else is out there and I am now curious, I want to stop Googling and work with you, how do we find you?
You can connect with me on my website is Meg Crockett with two T's
Mhm.
health.com. You can book a free discovery call with me there if you want to just connect and
Yeah.
let me know what's going on, and I can share with you how I work with people so we can kind of see if we're a match.
Yeah.
And there's also other information, testimonials, things like that that are on my website. And then, yeah, Instagram is a great place to connect with me as well and
Yeah.
there's a lot of information there. If you want to go down rabbit holes, you can go through old posts and highlights and things, but I try to put a lot of resources up there.
Yes. And like your link
So
in your bio, like I have done all sorts of rabbit holing on that too. Like there's just a ton of different resources for whatever you're curious about. I can say that because I have definitely done it. And I also just so genuinely enjoy your content every day because it's peaceful, which is just lovely. And it's honest and it's informative and it is just right for those who are curious, and it's so attainable. And I just really appreciate how you show up online versus, there's a lot of ways people can show up online and everyone is doing their best. And I really like your version.
thank you. That genuinely means a lot to me. And likewise, I love your content too. And again, so much, it's that honesty and the way that every time I look at your content, I'm like, I'm doing fine. Okay, I got this.
Right? You got this.
It's just very,
Mm-hmm.
you really have a skill there. And similarly, I know you've been through a lot as well. And I think sometimes some of us have these experiences because we're actually meant to help the change. And like,
Agreed.
I'm always talking about like, let's have like a whole new way of viewing our bodies and a whole new relationship to our bodies. So I'm really happy to hear that seems to come through.
It really does. And I think, knowledge is power and you make it in such a digestible way. And, when we talk about what we've been through and how can we create change, like I'm sure you feel this way too. It is an honor to be a little sliver of part of change. And if I can just make my one little corner of the universe feel a little more whatever they need to feel is seen and heard and valued and in charge of their own life, then like I can put my head on my pillow and know that I won the day.
Yeah, you're doing it. Definitely.
Same, girl. Same. I'm like, I will just steal you. This is my podcasts are always going to be a bajillion hours long because I had a million more.
They're so fun though.
Oh, I cannot tell you how much I've bit my tongue and sat on my hands to not ask 4,000 more questions. I'm like, behave, Betsy. But
we'll do it again. We'll do a part 2.
Oh my God, maybe we
I would love to. We'll do a part 2.
Oh, that would be really
absolutely
fun. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, we're going to brainstorm on that as we're healing my whole body. But seriously, thank you for the time. And I really encourage people to get out there and find the information. Go talk to Meg. I've known you a long time and you're just lovely and so bright. And I think you would just be a pleasure to work with. So thank you everyone for listening. Meg, thank you so much for your time. I will put all of Meg's information in the show notes. It will be linked on Instagram. You're going to see us in reels, but there are going to be so many juicy moments that we're going to hit. But I think at the end of the day, I hope that we have demystified what it means to have integrative health, made you curious about different ways that you can explore in a way that feels tangible and not super overwhelming. And I hope to God we have kicked perfect to the curb.
Yes.
When it comes to health.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for being on. And you guys, that's it for this episode, but you know where to find Meg. And as always, you got this. All right. Thanks everyone for listening. Well, that's the end of this episode, but promise me, you won't stop here with whatever it is you're feeling or dreaming about. I hope you leave today feeling empowered to live life just as you see fit. If this podcast was helpful to you, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a review on whatever platform you're listening on. I genuinely just want to help women live the life they dream about. So if this type of content tracks with you, subscribe to this podcast or visit our website, writeyourownsstory.co, to download digital courses or to grab a journal and a mug to just dream in and dream with. It's your life, lady. Do you. And just remember, I'm rooting for you and you've totally got this.